Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Traces.Dreams, Futures Frame TV Inequalities channel. I'm your host, Alice Krozer, and I'm here today with Maximo Jaramillo. Maximo is one of the foremost inequality scholars in Mexico, and he's probably one of the most famous, although under his pseudonym, which he'll talk about in a second.
Okay.
Maximo is a sociologist. He's a doctor in sociology, but he has worked in the public sector for a long time, evaluating policies. Currently, he's working in civil society in a foundation called Funda on the topic of tax redistribution, which he'll also tell us about in a second. Max, can you start talking about your Gatitos contra la Desigualdad, Cats Against Inequality, I guess, which is by now world famous, especially in this region. How did you come up with that, and what is this page about?
Well, thank you for the invitation, Alice. Hello, everybody. This webpage, this is more like a social account in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's called, like you say, Gatitos contra la Desigualdad, which means kitties against inequality. And it's a project about trying to reach all the knowledge that is produced and research for people who don't usually read academic papers. We have this hypothesis that inequality is really related with perceptions of inequality. So our objective is try to modify the perceptions related with inequality, giving people very easy information and simple to read and to understand, so they can start to think or modify their perceptions about inequality, and after that to ask for more redistributive policies. So I think that's the main core of the project, to modify perceptions of inequality so people can ask for more redistributive policies. The growth was very organic, just all the followers sharing the information, because we try to make very easy, and the way we share it is just with memes, with kitties, and a very precise data about inequality. So I think, and also in the tweet or the Facebook post is the source of the data. So people that are now interested on inequality, they can read more, in the paper or in the report of Oxfam, whatever. So they can do more research about the topic.
I mean, of course, I encourage you all to check out the page, because it's a beautiful page, beautiful features in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll share the handle. The key of this page of this concept is that you have pictures of cats. Everybody likes pictures of cats. And then they're forced to consume information on inequality, right?
Right.
And this information is precise and is always fact checked, and is very accessible even for people who are not technically very versed in the subject. And then for those that are interested in follow up on more information, they can go to the original source. It's a genius concept. It's very convincing. You have like 50,000 people following you on Facebook, right? That consume these cat pictures with inequality. Catsplaining, they call it.
Yeah. We have 50,000 in Facebook, and now we reach 20,000 in Twitter. So we're trying to grow more. And the thing here is that we noticed that before, people used to maybe read infographics, maybe not a whole paper, but maybe an infographic. But right now, there are more people that not even read an infographic, a whole infographic. So that's why we try with memes, and I think it's working right now.
Yeah, it seems very successful. It is, considering the response and the ratings and everything. I mean, it's beautiful. Everybody should follow the cats, the kitties against inequality. Can you say a little bit about what made you come up with this idea? I mean, what was the background? Were you working on the subject before? What brought you to it?
Yeah, of course. I've been working in perceptions of inequality for 6 years now. So there is this so-called paradox of inequality. now we have evidence that in these countries where there are more extreme level of inequality, a higher level of inequality, are the same countries that normally that they believe more in meritocracy. That's why it's called the paradox of inequality, because in these countries where you have more inequality, is less probably that someone who is born in a poor household can reach a rich household, right?
The idea of meritocracy is precisely that, right? That in principle, if you put in effort and hard work, you would get to any position that you wanted, right? That's the idea of meritocracy. So in a society that is highly unequal, this is very unlikely, and yet people seem to believe in the possibility of reaching wherever they want to get to. So the perception is somewhat in odds with reality.
Yeah. In this evidence that we found about this paradox of inequality, we are trying to understand more this meritocracy narrative, right? My doctoral thesis that was presented last year try to understand a little bit more about these dimensions that are inside this inequality narrative. This can change on different countries. I was doing this research for Mexico City, but I found that there are like three core dimensions in the narrative of meritocracy in Mexico City. These core dimensions are very related with individualism, that it's something very strong in so many countries as a result of these decades of neoliberalism ideology. There is also another dimension related with the stigma to view the poor like a guilty person or a guilty person of their socioeconomic situation. And there is also this clientelism. There is this view of people receiving social policies, the beneficiaries. So they are also like in a transaction, receiving money and giving a vote for the government, right? So these three dimensions are some way legitimizing the narrative of meritocracy, at least in the case I studied that is Mexico City.
So the people that are not in a good socioeconomic position are viewed as, for example, lazy or ignorant or something, and that's why they're not in this position. And if they get up, it's because they get social services from the government in exchange for vote, and everybody is responsible for themselves. And this whole melange gives the idea of, or gives the legitimation or justification for inequality as it is right now.
Yeah, and also these views are not only related with high class people. There is also a reproduction of these narratives in medium class or also in low class. There is this problem between poor neighborhoods where there are some people that maybe they don't receive these social policies, but the neighbor or the people living there in the neighborhood, they receive these social policies, and they find a way to make these people guilty about their situation. Maybe they say, okay, these people are receiving this Prospera program that is a social policy here in Mexico, or used to be. And why are they receiving that if they are the owners of their house? Or why are they receiving this social policy, this program, if they are working? Why, if they are working, they are receiving social protection program from the government, right? So there is also a reproduction of these narratives within the low class people. And this is also a problem because at the end, this stigma gives like a justification, like you say, for inequality, and a justification of how these people are not like a right holder of and a legitimized beneficiary of these social programs.
So instead of pursuing a rights-based approach, everybody thinks that nobody deserves anything, basically, because they should do it by themselves. And I mean, the reason why this is a problem, of course, is because this is not reality, right? In reality, you cannot pursue it, at least not in the Mexican reality out here.
Yeah, there are a lot of myths related with these narratives. So there is this myth that poor people don't work, they don't work. Actually, the reality is that they are the people who work the most here in Mexico. They are the people who has the higher percentage of having two jobs, actually. So the people with less income. So we don't know how these myths are constructed, but we know that they are very spread in the narratives of Mexican people. There is also this myth that the beneficiaries of this program Prospera, that I said before, the women there, they have more children they start to think this is what myth says. These women has more children only to receive more money from government. So with data, we have proved that this is not true, but the myth is there. So, and there are also a lot of myths related with rich people that doesn't the facts of reality. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that also.
Yeah, please, by all means.
Okay.
Tell me about it. I'm interested in that subject, as you know.
Yeah. So there is this myth related with how you can become rich people, right? And actually, the myth there is that only with work and effort you can transit from a very poor situation to a rich household, a rich class situation, right? So with data, you can prove not only that we don't have high social mobility on the country, but also that rich people normally, actually the people in the country, like the 17 in the Forbes billionaire list, actually all of them are related with at least one of these three reasons. So they became rich. They inherit the money or the wealth of their family. Actually, I think 14 of these 17 inherit this wealth. There is also a reason related with the relation with the government. In Spanish, we can call it like compadrazgo. I don't know if there is a concept like that in English.
No, I don't actually know if there is a correct term for it, but it's some revolving door process, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So there is this relation with these people and the government. So the government keeps giving them projects or keeps making condonaciones.
They allow them not to pay taxes.
Yeah. They allow them not to pay taxes. So this relation with government results
like a nepotism relation.
Yeah, and there is also a third dimension related with rich people getting to be the richest people in Mexico, and it's also that they are their companies, because all of them are company owners. Their companies work in an economic market that is very concentrated. So they are the owners of monopolies or the owners of some company in an oligopolistic market. So they are at the end they are receiving this extra money.
Supernormal profit.
Yeah, supernormal profit. They have this unjust profit from the market. So at the end, these three reasons are like not only related with working more or making more effort. So there are reasons related with injustice, so they can be there in top of the incomes and wealth in Mexico.
So that leads us very nicely to what you're working on currently. Maybe before we round up, you can say what you're working on, because that is kind of an answer to dealing with these inequalities, right? I mean, redistribution policy is the main factor that comes in there.
Yeah, at the end, all of this is related with what we call fiscal justice, that takes into account all the social policies and the redistributive policies, like in the expenditure, the social expenditure, and also related with taxes, right? And how the government tries to equalize the income and the wealth from the taxes and the expenditure. So I'm working the NGO. In the program I'm working on is fiscal justice. And we are trying to make an effort to research on a possibility of tax reform in Mexico, because in Mexico we have this very little difference between the market income that is called, that is the income that people gets from the work or the companies, etc., and the income after the taxes and the social policies. So there are these countries, normally countries in Europe, there are a huge difference between these two indicators, the market income and the income after taxes and social policies. But in Mexico, we have a very little difference, and it's very related on the low money on taxes that the government earns. So we have only 16% of the GDP on taxes. There are countries with more poverty in Latin America, like Honduras, Bolivia, that they raise from taxes like 20% or 22% of GDP. So we are very, very low in these taxes. So that's why we cannot have a huge social expenditure, because we don't raise enough money from people and from companies. So that's why in the NGO I'm working right now, we are trying to justify the reasons why we need a tax reform. And there are a lot of dimensions of taxes in Mexico that can be like very improved.
Yeah, for starters, it's the only country in the OECD that doesn't have an inheritance tax, or any wealth tax for that matter.
So, yeah, and we are working like in some proposals for inheritance tax and wealth tax, but maybe that's too far from be justified in Mexico narratives, because that's the problem. In Mexico, there is no a big support on taxes, so we have to fight not only with companies not trying not to pay taxes, but also with middle class and low class people that they also justify other people not paying taxes. So there is a huge fight to be done there.
Yeah, maybe we need some kitties for tax reform or for redistribution. Well, clearly there's some work to be done on the narrative to improve the image of redistribution, right? As not a charge, but rather an investment in just society in the future.
Yeah, and maybe a first topic that we have worked there with narratives. You and other researchers just did last year this research about how much taxes people think they pay, right? And I think it was like 40% of their income they think, and actually they pay like less than
21.
21. So maybe the first step there is like trying to make people to realize that they are paying a very little tax rate, and then we can move beyond, so we can ask for more taxes, and it can be, as we agree, like a very progressive tax reform, right? So maybe poor people are still paying the same taxes they are paying right now, but rich people, they can pay more than right now.
Thank you, Max, for sharing this. I will send you the paper again so you can make some memes out of them and put some cat pictures to it. Maybe people will then understand and support a more progressive tax reform. Very interesting to learn about the perceptions that poor people and rich people have of themselves and of others, and that are not always in tune with the actual reality as measured out there. So maybe we just have to learn more about and from each other in order to understand what is really going on and to make society somewhat more just and fair. Max, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you.
I'm Alice Krozer, your host on Futures for MTV Inequalities channel, and I hope you'll join us again next time when we talk about inequalities. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.